Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer because we really need to completely rethink how we view trade promotions. I mean, for far too long, the industry has been stuck in this standard management mindset, right? Just tracking dollars instead of actually driving growth. So today, we're shifting gears. We are moving from simply managing promotions to true profit driving optimization.
And here's the crucial point. A staggering 15 to 20% of top line sales revenue is spent on trade promotions by consumer packaged goods companies. Just take a second to think about that sheer volume of capital. It's massive. Yet, despite throwing all this money at the wall, so much of it is completely wasted. Why? Because of flawed data and outdated methodologies that totally obscure what's actually working.
So, to fix this, we're going to break it down into 6 logical steps. We'll cover the trade promotion trap, the 4 metrics that matter, and finding your true baseline. Then we'll get into harmonizing disparate data, tactics that actually work, and finally, flawless planning and execution.
All right, starting things off with Section 1, the trade promotion trap.
We've got to bust a major myth right out of the gate here. Shipment data, it is practically useless for measuring promotional effectiveness. Seriously. Why? Well, one word, diversion. You get absolutely zero credit for just loading inventory onto a customer's loading dock. If you really want to know what's happening, you have to rely exclusively on retail point of sale data. That's what tells you what the consumer is actually putting into their cart. Moving right along to Section 2, 4 metrics that matter.
Assuming we've wiped the slate clean, and hey, no judgment at all if your previous data analysis was a bit of a mess, these are the 4 pillars of measurement you absolutely need. Notice how the whole thing starts with consumer units? That's vital, because you have to measure exactly the way the consumer actually buys. From there, we calculate revenue, which is the shipment value of those units sold at retail. Then we look at the incremental factor, and finally, the spend ratio to figure out the actual profit of the event.
Now let's talk about that incremental factor, because it is brilliantly simple and it's honestly the single most strategically important measure in trade analytics. It's just your incremental revenue divided by your total revenue. But it cuts right through all the noise and answers a pretty terrifying question. What percentage of my business literally disappears if I stop promoting tomorrow? For some brands, that answer is well over 50%. But here's the catch, which brings us to Section 3, finding your true baseline. You simply can't calculate that incremental factor without an accurate baseline. And this is where almost everyone gets tripped up. Take a look at this real-world pasta sauce scenario for Bertolli. We've got 2 promotional events. One is a $1.88 price point and the other is a 2 for $5 deal. Now, if you just look at the raw unit spikes, these 2 completely different price points appear to generate almost identical sales lifts. But look closer. Notice the impossible error highlighted in green here? We call these phantom spikes. The syndicated data is basically trying to tell us that the underlying non-promoted baseline magically jumped up during the exact weeks of the promotion. I mean, intuitively and mathematically, that is just impossible. But because this phantom spike artificially raises the floor, it makes the $1.88 deal look like it generated almost double the incremental volume compared to the 2 for 5 deal. Watch what happens when we correct those phantom spikes to reflect reality. The actual flattened baseline reveals a totally different picture. The 2 for 5 deal is vastly superior. It delivers the exact same volume lift, but with significantly lower buy-down costs. Without that accurate baseline, you would have made the totally wrong strategic choice and, frankly, left a lot of money on the table. Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, harmonizing disparate data. I know data harmonization isn't exactly the most glamorous topic, but it is unequivocally the biggest barrier preventing companies from optimizing their promotions. Look at this nightmare disconnect. I bet a lot of you are intimately familiar with this. On one side, you've got your internal transaction spreadsheets with completely different ending dates, weird brand sizes, and cryptic funding codes. And on the other side, the actual physical Sunday paper ad running in the store. Harmonizing these 2 realities, getting the dates, currencies, and product groupings to actually match up, is an absolute prerequisite before any optimization model can do its job.
All right, let's get to the fun stuff. Section 5, tactics that actually work.
Once your data is clean and baselines are true, the fog finally lifts, right? You can actually see what moves the needle. And here is a statistical truth that might shock you. Shoppers who use loyalty cards are actually among the most disloyal buyers you have. Yeah, they're heavy buyers, so they're super important, but they are incredibly fickle. If they don't get a good deal in your store today, they will jump ship to a competitor in a heartbeat.
So what actually wins them over? The data shows the absolute best tactics are a straight percentage off, but you gotta go big, like 20% or more. Then buy one, get one free, and net price after a freestanding insert. On the flip side, the absolute worst tactics are bonus packs, annoying multiple purchase requirements, and that sneaky buy two, get 50% off deal. That's basically just a gimmick banking on careless shoppers, and honestly, it doesn't even perform as well as a flat 25% discount.
The broader strategy here is incredibly clear. Deeper, fewer deals generate massive, non-linear growth. You save on fixed ad costs because you're running fewer events, and that deep discount drives huge volume spikes. It's way more profitable than running frequent, moderate discounts that, honestly, just train your consumers to hold off on buying until a sale pops up.
Finally, let's bring it all home with Section 6, flawless planning and execution.
Knowing the data is one thing, but executing it smoothly is another. When you sit down to plan, the recommendation is really strong here. Ditch the live accrual forecasting models. They just have way too many moving parts. Instead, use prior year accruals. That locks in a realistic budget well in advance, and it completely avoids those messy pull-forward effects that distort your numbers at the end of the year. And when you're executing with your retail partners, remember that lowering a price hits the overall margins. To make it work fairly, the manufacturer has to subsidize the discount in direct proportion to their profit share in the value chain. So if you're making 75% of the profit, you need to cover 75 cents of a $1 discount. It's just fair play, and it ensures both sides win while building long-term trust. Also, you have to avoid these critical, self-defeating barriers. Manufacturers get way too obsessed with displays, when a simple coupon might actually be way more profitable. Retailers often force these card-only strategies that just depress total incremental sales, because, let's face it, not everyone wants to join the club. Drop the inflexible margins and the me orientation, or you're just getting in your own way. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to challenge your next promotional calendar. Are you merely managing your promotions day to day, or are you truly optimizing them? Think about that massive 15 to 20% trade spend. With the right metrics, harmonized data, and proven tactics, that spend isn't just a necessary evil anymore, it is absolutely your biggest engine for growth. Thanks so much for diving in with me, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.